Good evening and welcome to The Right Side, the show where we talk about today's news, views, trends, and opinions from an admittedly conservative perspective. I'm your host, Chris Pareja, and this evening we're joined by a longtime friend of mine, a political activist, an organizer of an upcoming event called the Red Pill Expo, and all around, former congressional candidate, rock star, Debbie Bacigalupi. Thank you for coming back on the show. I don't know if you know, but you're like one of the tied for first place on records for the number of people that we've had come back 3 times.
Nice.
Yeah, so.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, you know what? You can, I've got a lot to talk about, I guess, Chris.
But also, you're entertaining and people are engaged. And so, yeah, when they found out you were available to come on the show, they said, we're bringing back Debbie. So,
great. Well, it's fun to be here. Thank you.
So we do want to talk about the event that you have coming up, the Red Pill Expo, but we also want a general catch-up on the world according to Debbie. So we'll start with this Red Pill Expo because we've talked about it. It kind of ties into a lot of the things you've been active in, that you continue to be active in, and that you will be out changing the world around. So tell us about the Red Pill Expo and what's going to be happening.
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's in Bozeman, Montana. So we wanted a conference that was different from all the rest that most people normally go to, you know, the conservative conferences that are out there. And organized by a great man named G. Edward Griffin, who wrote the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, and which is about exposing the Fed and the fake system, you know, our fake money system and our manipulated money system. And so it was his dream. He's like 86 years old, and it was always Edward's dream to have a conference that brings in a variety of speakers. Like we have Ty Bollinger, who is an expert on cancer, and he did a full expose, 19 hours on the truth about cancer, and traveled all over the world to find out really what experts, medical experts, gurus thought about, you know, our cancer treatments. For example, you cannot get what we call vitamin B17 in the United States. You can get it in Mexico, but it's not available here in the United States. Another name for it is Laetrile, which people have been showing that it is curing cancer. Where do you find Laetrile? Like apricot seeds, so eating the inside of an apricot seed. So Ty Bollinger is going to be one of our speakers. He's got a following of millions and millions and millions of people around the world. Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad author, is going to be there. Patrick Wood, who is the expert on technocracy. In fact, people see that under my name it says technocracy.news. I'm a part of that. What technocracy is we are in the One Bay Area and Agenda 21 is what we call a technocratic state, where everything is scientific. You know how with climate...
On the surface.
Yeah, well, exactly. And you know how with climate change and global warming, we always hear the science is settled. In other words, don't question science. Don't question their science. Well, we know, any scientist knows, any average person knows, science is never settled. But we're told when it comes to global warming, climate change, the sea rise, you know, I'm a cattle rancher as well, methane and greenhouse gases, that the science is settled, people. You must go along with the One Bay Area plan. You must go along with sustainable development. So Patrick uncovers this artificial intelligence, robotic, technocratic future where the science is settled. You know what? Think about it. Our smartphones, for example, you know, you'll be at a restaurant and you'll think that a family's praying before the meal.
They're just bowed down over their technology.
They're bowing down to the god of technology, right? Which is your smartphone, and everything's supposed to be available on your smartphone. The cashless society. And this is, you know, it may sound, you know, to some, this is just a little bit Looney Tunes. Look it up. You could see all over. Technocracy is a word that's coming very, very prevalent in our news, in our conversation. There's Patrick wrote a book called Technocracy Rising. And it's a fabulous book that talks about Agenda 21, sustainable development, the history of Agenda 21. It even includes parts of the One Bay Area plan, but ties it all together to say, this is where we're heading, people. It is a scientific dictatorship. So Pat's going to be speaking about technocracy. We have Joel Salatin. He's a Christian libertarian known as the Lunatic Farmer, and he will talk about his website is Polyface Farms, and he's hired and contracted all over the world to go visit farmers and ranchers to create a farming system on a ranch or a farm where it's a sustainable farm, but not
real sustainability, not the artificial sustainability that we're told works?
Right, correct. And he also will talk about GMOs versus non-GMOs. We have Daniel Johnson, a 23-year-old brilliant guy who originally created a group called PANDA, People Against the National Defense Authorization Act. What is the National Defense Authorization Act? It is
internment camps.
It was supposed to fund the military, but over time it has morphed into people who talk about Agenda 21 or conspiracies can be considered terrorist on U.S. soil.
Yes.
So he exposed this. He created the largest grassroots organization to stop the National Defense Authorization, where they declared our homes, our home ground, a battle zone. If you can be under this bill, which has been funded by, George Bush and then exaggerated under the Obama administration, you as a U.S. citizen can be taken out of the country into a foreign country and tried on another country's military base. Like, it's just. So anyway, Daniel Johnson is going to be talking actually about tax reform. So now he's just brilliant, a brilliant guy. We have a woman named Holly Swanson who's going to expert on education and how the education system is following the Green Party, Communist USA principles, not just with Common Core, but even in policy law. And she's going to use Portland, Oregon as an example. We've got up to 20 speakers already coming in for, Lord Christopher Monckton,
yeah.
Who was Margaret Thatcher's policy advisor, and he's going to be flying all the way from London. And then we have a few people join.
But he's known best for being a climate
skeptic.
A skeptic, right.
Denialist, yeah. And he was also hired to go with Obama's birth certificate. He was hired by people to examine. He's a mathematician, Christopher Monckton is. He's brilliant. And he was hired to examine the birth certificate that the Obama administration had released for the public. And he simply went through those back then, the birth certificates were done on a typewriter.
Right.
It's not on a computer. Well, he has proven where the typewriter messes up, and it was done by a computer. Well, back then it wasn't done by a computer, so somebody manipulated what the birth certificate that was put out to the public, and it's a faulty document. So anyway, so lots of different conversations from cancer to climate change and farming and ranching and everything in between. So it's called the redpillexpo.org. It's June 23rd and 24th. We're doing a barbecue. It's going to be festive, and I'm organizing it. But the conference is about reality versus illusion.
And that was going to be my question. Bring it home for us.
Yeah.
So like within a lot of the things we see in the media, we're presented one side, the truth that we are directed to ingest and believe, even if it makes no sense, even if it's not scientifically based, even if reality that we're seeing is contradictory.
Right.
Just believe what we're telling you and move on. Nothing to see here.
Right.
You're bringing the other side.
Absolutely. And that's, goes back to the climate change, global warming. The science is settled. No, it's not.
Right. So you've used some other terms here that we've used on the show, but people tuning in for the first time may not understand. And those are also things that I wanted an update on what you're seeing out there in the world, in the wild. Not the rewilded wild, but like out in the world. Things you've used words like Agenda 21 and Plan Bay Area. Bring people up to speed on what those things mean, the ramifications, and what you're seeing happening currently in those areas.
Okay. Another terms that we hear all the time are sustainable or sustainable development.
Right.
And those terms used to mean, sustainable used to mean that to us, when people hear that term, it's a common knowledge term, right? Makes common sense. We want to preserve things.
We don't like the word common anymore since it's been associated with core either. But go ahead. We'll try to find a word that we're not going to be offended by.
Exactly. Okay. So it's a word that, people understood as, yeah, of course you want to take care of things so that they last forever and ever and ever.
Who wouldn't want it to be unsustainable? I mean, smart growth, who would want stupid growth, right?
Right. Yeah, and all these terms that you're now bringing up, which are part of an agenda that is called United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainable Development. What's Agenda 21? It is the agenda for the 21st century based on sustainable development. Okay, so what's the premise? The premise is that human beings are so bad to Mother Earth that we build homes, that we eat meat, that we drive cars, that we, buy big TVs, that we need all these things. We want to dress nicely. All those things. You have a smartphone. All those things take resources from Mother Earth, Gaia. And so the more population, the larger population, the more we advance our own wealth, and we want more and we consume more. According to the people who would love to see Agenda 21 sustainable development realized in this century, the 21st century, we must cut down on our lifestyle.
And humans, if possible.
Well, just down the road from here is Paul Ehrlich, the Stanford professor who wrote Population Bomb. What's population? What's that book about? It's about the Earth is overpopulated. Who's it overpopulated with? People who don't want to protect. There's a small population, it says in his book, who are out to protect planet Earth, who like to see the flowers and the wildlife, and then there's the rest of the people. And you and I and the average person is considered the rest of the people. So they believe that the world is overpopulated. That's why we often hear on TV about population and there's too many people and we need to bike, walk, and take public transportation so that we cut down on the needs of the human beings, and there's too many people and it's so much traffic. We need to live in high rises. We need to vertically live versus horizontally live. Now, I'm a cattle rancher's daughter, and we actually prefer horizontal sprawl over vertical sprawl, and because our cows and our animals prefer to roam on, the land that we own. Right. But according to these movements, we human beings, there's much too many of us. We consume too much, and we're causing too many greenhouse gases that is causing climate change and global warming. Therefore, we must change our life into a sustainable one called sustainable living. Walk, bike, take public transportation everywhere you go. You share things, you share resources. This is why we see in the Bay Area this movement towards the One Bay Area plan, where we share everything. The goal behind the One Bay Area plan is to create this mega region where city-county borders start to disappear because we're merging. We're relying on each county, each city, each area on each other. We're sharing resources to cut down on the supposed resources that we are using as human beings. So it's this big movement to reduce the consumption, to reduce the lifestyles of human beings to fit what they feel is a sustainable future in the 21st century. Right. And part of that is maintaining the Earth's temperature within 2 degrees Celsius, or it's something like 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit. So how do you maintain the Earth's temperature?
Well, you make the seasons stop, number one, because you don't want cold spots and warm spots. Everyone should have the same temperature. It's not fair if somebody's hot and somebody's cold. Well, and then you need air conditioning, which is an additional resource.
It's an additional resource, and so we need to cut down on these things because because we need to make planet Earth. The 3 E's of sustainable development. You are alluding to one of them about equality is social equity. There you go. Yeah. Right. And this is the social engineering aspect of social equality. If you look at Stanford,
we need to do the other 2 E's before we forget: environment and economy.
Right. So the other is environmental justice. Right. In other words, rocks have rights.
Indeed, and celery shouldn't be murdered, but somebody has to eat, and the animals aren't allowed. So, but
Did you know that recently a river in New Zealand was declared to have the same rights as human beings? So this is where we're heading. Water, Right. So the other one is social equity, environmental justice, and economic justice.
Do you have to have permission to drink from that river? From the river?
I don't know, but you laugh and make fun.
No, but it's seriously, that's the level of
It is. It is, and this is why we're starting to see in the state of California, for example, something called the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. SGMA is another name for it.
Okay.
And I just went to a meeting recently about SGMA, and these attorneys that are part of it were saying that by the year 2040, interesting, isn't that the plan?
That's Plan Bay Area's.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's Plan Bay Area. Their ultimate goal is to have the Plan Bay Area done by the year 2040.
Right.
So 2040 is a key. It used to be 2050. If you look up America2050.org, that's when they wanted the regions set up in the United States. Well, they're actually bumping it up to the year 2040.
Right.
So probably because they know by the year 20, if we reduce it to by 10 years, it's less likely that the climate, that as we keep proving that the climate's not changing the way that they want it to, which is warming. The quicker they can make their plans implemented, the more urgency, the more we get these things done, then they can claim, as the earth has not warmed or not cooled, as they say, they could claim, oh, that was because of us, because we implemented this by the year 2040 and everybody's living a sustainable development lifestyle.
That would almost make it sound like temperature might be partially cyclical, and that they're moving toward a cyclical solution.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
So all these things that are happening around us is really illusion versus reality.
Right.
Yeah. And I just got back from the Sundance Film Festival. I was hired to go sit in some of the green films. Sundance has a new category of film called, it's called climate. I can't remember it right now, but it's about climate change and global warming. So the climate reality is what it's called. Interesting.
That's very interesting.
And so I sat in on Al Gore's new film that comes out in July, and it's called Inconvenient Sequel. And I got to see Al Gore in person. In fact, I got him on my smartphone, and I got him going into his SUV as Park City, Utah was dumping snow, and the vegan eating, not that I'm against how someone eats, I actually really don't care how someone eats, but when you're a hypocrite,
it's not loud.
But if you're going to be a hypocrite about, look, I'm vegan, I'm saving planet Earth because I'm not going to eat meat, but I'm wearing my big furry boots and I'm walking on pavement, which is made with livestock byproducts, and I flew in on a plane, which the lubricants in the retractable gear for, when the wheels come down is livestock byproduct, insulation, sheetrock, all these things, bicycle tires, livestock byproduct, lipstick, livestock byproduct, shampoo, deodorant, all these things. So, I'm not against people being vegan, but you cannot be vegan in modern day society. Sorry, guys, it's impossible.
But also, if they're wearing fur boots, they didn't eat the animal too? They just wear them?
I know. Well,
is that degrading?
Here's the neat thing about Chris. Here's the neat thing about the cattle industry. Over 98%. Look, I'm a cattle rancher's daughter. I'm proud of it. I am so proud to be a cattle rancher's daughter, especially because you see, the cleansing, if you will, the disappearing of good family cattle ranching, moving into Walmart owning food, Cargill, all these mega companies. I mean, if anybody in San Francisco should be, rearing their getting upset, it should be the liberals who claim that they want their nutrient-dense, rich food. But you know what? What they're doing is they're voting us ranchers out by their laws and their policies, and wanting wolves brought in and wanting, nobody to own private property. We're the ones who provide nutrient-dense, rich food. We're not lacing our food with chemicals. So, we need everyone to come to bat for us ranchers and farmers. But, I'm proud of being a cattle rancher. Because we do take care of the land. We do provide these, just wonderful byproducts for people. Over 98% of the cow is used in something.
Exactly. And in some cultures, even much more than we would as the normal Western American kind of culture. I mean, you get into some of the more ethnic restaurants and ethnic food stores, and there are things that we just don't see at Safeway, as an example.
You mean like dogs?
Oh, no. I'm not talking about dogs. I was just talking about parts of cows as an example.
Oh, I thought you meant that there are restaurants out there that do serve dogs.
Well, there very well could be. I know there are. Here locally,
I hope not.
I've heard that seal sandwiches sometimes actually include seals. But it's just as far as, it is a sustainable kind of business, cattle ranching, or with the oysters that were recently
Drake's Bay oyster, that got shut down by the federal government.
Actually cleaning the water, helping the environment, but and this is what all of what you're working on boils down to, is that the politicization of these things overrides common sense, and looking at the real result of these businesses or these people that are out improving the environment. And if we really cared about things like trees and oxygen and clean water, we'd pay more attention to protecting as opposed to demolishing these families, these businesses, these ways of life.
Well, the analogy I often use for people is on shared resources. When you rent a car, do you put the best gas, the best, most expensive gas in that car?
Of course not. You put what'll make it run until you return it. And
the cheapest you can get.
Right.
And do you make it clean? Do you clean it up before you turn it in?
No. If you own it, you take pride in it.
You take pride in it.
If you borrow, rent, or share, or you're ticked off at the person who you're sharing it with, then things get ugly. And
this is what makes, to me, the United States, which was a country founded on right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. At one time, it was private property, right?
Right.
And private property is what we work for.
Right.
But it doesn't just mean your home. It doesn't just mean your car. It's your body. It's your mind. It's the things that you create with that you think about, that you create in your mind, and then you create with your hands.
Right.
That's yours until you give it away.
Right.
But in this new, Agenda 21, this new common future that we're all living in fact, that's a United Nations term based on a book called Our Common Future, that promulgated United Nations Agenda 21. It's the book that launched Agenda 21 across the world. Next, what happened was the 1992 Rio Earth Summit. I went to the 20-year anniversary of that Rio Earth Summit in 2012 when I ran for Congress. And so Agenda 21 was promulgated to the world as our common future.
Right.
And that's, you said Common Core, I believe, earlier. There's no coincidence in that we are all to be one common global citizenry, acting with the same principles, sustainable development, to save planet Earth, which we are supposedly killing based on our carbon footprint and greenhouse gases. Therefore, we must work together in a sustainable development lifestyle to reduce the planet's temperature by 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit, or we must maintain it, not reduce it, year-round.
Right.
And the only way that they suggest that you do that is you live a sustainable development lifestyle.
Right. And it's first of all, it's irrational. It's not possible, and it is a way of controlling the others. Now, we've only got about a minute left. People may be intrigued, or they may want to throw darts at you. What's the best way? Debbie backed down from a fight. Now, let's talk about that being irrational and unrealistic. So talk to us, though, about where they can find you. Websites?
Yes, technocracy.news in the About Us page is where you can find me, or through the redpillexpo.org. We hope to see you there. It'll be fantastic, exciting. And they can also find me, go to these One Bay Area Plan meetings, go to U.S. Fish and Wildlife meetings, go to United Nations meetings. You might just find me there. Just
spell your last name, because Bacigalupi is not one that everyone will be able to spell right off the bat, and then we'll have to take a break. So spell out.
Yeah, and maybe they'll remember. It's Kiss of the Wolf. Bacigalupi.
Thanks, Debbie. If you'll hold on for just a moment, we'll be back after a word from our underwriters, the Conservative Forum.
Some people think that a meeting of conservatives in Silicon Valley could fit in a small room. In fact, when the Conservative Forum was founded in 2003, we did meet in a small room, a coffee shop in San Jose. It doesn't get more grassroots than this. It may surprise you that there are thousands of people right here in Silicon Valley who share your principles of liberty, free markets, and limited government. Since our humble beginnings in that coffee shop, we've outgrown 3 meeting halls. From San Jose to Gilroy to Mill Valley, we bring hundreds of people together each month from all over the Bay Area to promote the principles of American liberty. How do we do it? It starts with a stellar lineup of speakers. Speakers like Steve Forbes, Senator Jim DeMint, Dr. Victor Davis Hanson, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, Andrew Breitbart, Pamela Geller, and many others. These speakers passionately articulate our shared principles and remind us why conservatism isn't just the smart choice, it's also the moral choice. Our monthly meetings are only one dimension of the forum. We underwrite The Right Side, a monthly television show on cable access channel KMVT. We also host a monthly Constitution discussion group and provide tables at our meetings for more than a dozen local groups who share our love of liberty to promote their specific cause. The Conservative Forum is the premier place in Silicon Valley for conservatives to gather, become invigorated, motivated, and empowered. We welcome guests to our monthly meetings and offer special discounted pricing to first-time visitors. Take a look at our speaker lineup in the coming months and join us to learn why we say liberty is made in America.
And that was a word from our underwriters, the Conservative Forum. We appreciate them immensely. They've made this show possible for 6 seasons now and helped to bring you guests and information and thought processes and perspectives that you often won't find in the mainstream media. But what is unique about them is that they also gather people in person here in the Bay Area, a lot of times 300 to 500 at a time at the monthly speaker events that they have at 432 Steerland Road, just a few minutes from here in Mountain View. And they bring speakers from around the country, around the world. As, for example, in June, Clint Bolick of the Arizona Supreme Court will be joining us. And prior to joining the court, he actually litigated constitutional cases in state and federal courts from coast to coast, including the U.S. Supreme Court. In July, Heather McDonald of the Manhattan Institute and City Journal will be there. And she'll be talking about her newest book, The War on Cops, was written in 2016, about race-based attacks on the criminal justice system. In August, Dwayne Stovall, a community activist versus a communist activist, which we see a lot of in the Bay Area, and his primary focus is trying to influence policy and to push for state legislators and executives to take a stand against an ever-growing and ever unconstitutional national government. For information on those and others, please reach out and look it up on the web at theconservativeforum.com. In closing, you know, Debbie and I were joking during the break that a lot of times people hear the things that we talk about and they think, that's crazy. That sounds like conspiracy theory stuff. Those people are nuts. Until they actually look us up or look up the things that we're talking about and they start to see things all around them that back up the things that we've told them are happening, not just for them, but to them. Things like sustainable development, things like why are there high-rises popping up in the middle of their downtown areas, and why are people pushing for low-paying, low-wage jobs that are close to home and walkable versus providing the opportunities that people need to provide a living for their family. So look up Debbie. You can look her up on Google or lots of other places. She is everywhere and across the internet. Millions of times you'll find her in searches. So look her up and then actually dissect what she's saying. Put the reality test to her, and what you may find is that the stuff she's talking about is very real. I've been your host this evening, Chris Pareja, and I will be still in the future. And this has been the Right Side. But we do ask you if you, we'll look forward to seeing you again sometime in the future, either in person or on the show. But if you need us faster, reach out to us at therightsidetv@gmail.com. We'll get back to you. Thanks. Have a great night.